In a quiet town where nothing ever seemed out of place, a simple delivery arrived without warning. A neatly wrapped cake, a handwritten note, and no name attached. At first, it felt like a harmless gesture, the kind teenagers exchange without a second thought. But within hours, subtle discomfort turned into something far more sinister, and within 48 hours, a 17-year-old girl was dead. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, no obvious crime, just a family left searching for answers and a single haunting question. Who sent the package? As investigators peeled back the layers, what they uncovered wasn't just a hidden motive. It was a carefully crafted plan that had been set in motion long before anyone realized the danger. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Let's get into today's episode. In late May 2025, a parcel was delivered to the Neves family home in the quiet town of Itapecerica da Serra. There had been no prior warning, no call, and no explanation. Just a courier, a carefully wrapped box, and a handwritten note bearing only a few words. At first glance, nothing appeared unusual. Among teenagers, unexpected gifts and spontaneous gestures are fairly common. No one initially viewed the delivery as suspicious. However, by the following day, a string of small, seemingly unrelated events began to occur. What started as minor details quickly intensified. Within 48 hours, the situation turned tragic. 17-year-old Anna Neves lost her life, and the home that once echoed with ordinary routines became the focus of a formal investigation. At first, there were no clear indications of a crime, no signs of violence, no evidence of forced entry. But as authorities dug deeper, a more complex picture began to emerge. The investigation started with a simple question: where had the package come from, and who had sent it? The answer proved far from straightforward, ultimately challenging everything investigators believed they understood about human behavior. Jerica de Serra, 17 years old, was a student at Raul Batista dos Oliveira High School. Teachers and classmates described her as quiet, respectful, and thoughtful. She was seldom seen in large groups, choosing instead to spend time with a small circle of close friends. According to those who knew her, she didn't chase popularity, stayed away from conflict, and generally kept to herself. Anna was gentle and kind, not someone who created drama or took reckless risks. However, to some, particularly one specific classmate, that quiet confidence made her stand out. One of Anna's closest friends, referred to here as Carmen for confidentiality, spent a great deal of time with her after school, on weekends, and during sleepovers. Their friendship seemed sincere. Carmen frequently visited Anna's home and was familiar with her family. They communicated daily, sharing jokes, photos, and conversations about everyday life, appearing completely normal to those around them. They appeared almost inseparable. However, for Carmen, that closeness slowly began to feel overwhelming. Over time, she started to feel as though she was living in the shadow of someone she once considered her best friend. Carmen was highly sensitive and emotionally unstable, though this wasn't immediately obvious. On the surface, she seemed warm and cheerful, but internally she struggled with deep feelings of inadequacy. She viewed herself as less attractive, less confident, and less important compared to Anna, who seemed to accomplish everything with ease in her eyes. Gradually, Carmen began to see her as the root of her own insecurities. Anna's family, particularly her father Silvio and her younger sister, were supportive and actively involved in her daily life. Their home environment was peaceful and stable, providing Anna with the attention and care she needed. Her parents closely monitored her schoolwork and remained engaged with her progress and daily routine. By the spring of 2025, Carmen's comparisons had intensified into something far deeper. What began as occasional thoughts, triggered by compliments Anna received or photos they took together turned into constant scrutiny. Every one of Anna's achievements felt like a personal reminder of what Carmen believed she lacked. Although there was never a direct confrontation, Carmen became highly aware of how others responded to Anna, paying attention to even the smallest gestures, looks, or casual remarks. Gradually, everything began to feel layered with hidden meaning. On the surface, nothing had changed. They still texted. I spent time together and attended school side by side. But Carmen's behavior grew more distant. Her responses became mechanical, and emotionally, she was withdrawing. What frustrated her most was that Anna seemed completely unaware, continuing to treat her the same as always, not realizing the internal struggle Carmen was facing. That lack of awareness only deepened Carmen's frustration. In her mind, her resentment began to feel justified. She didn't view Anna as malicious, but her mere presence started to feel intrusive, as though she had taken a place that didn't truly belong to her. At the same time, Carmen started searching for ways to change the situation, yet she chose not to share her feelings with friends or family. Her thoughts grew increasingly isolated, and eventually she convinced herself that speaking up wouldn't make a difference, that no one would understand. This mindset led her toward the idea of taking action, though doing anything openly wasn't an option. A direct confrontation would damage her image and invite too many questions. Instead, Carmen began exploring other possibilities, becoming increasingly fixated on stories about causing harm without leaving clear evidence. Carmen began looking into substances, food sensitivities, and ways to disguise harmful actions as kind gestures. She carried out all of this activity on her phone, without keeping notes, leaving digital traces, or making threats. Even at this stage, there were clear signs of premeditation. She was evaluating different options, considering how to avoid suspicion, and thinking through potential consequences. By May, Carmen's mindset had shifted into a steady state of hostility. Although she continued to appear normal on the outside, she no longer sought empathy or connection. Her focus became singular, planning. It was then that the idea emerged, to present something that would seem harmless and impossible to link to any ill intent. By that point, Carmen no longer viewed their friendship as genuine from her perspective. It became an opportunity, a way in. Anna trusted her, accepted her help, and never questioned her intentions, and that trust would become the foundation for what followed. Outwardly, there were no noticeable changes in Carmen's behavior. At school, she appeared composed, performed well academically, and stayed out of trouble. But internally, she'd already crossed a line, convincing herself she had the right to eliminate the source of her resentment. Her preparation was careful, gradual, and completely concealed. Carmen searched for a method to act without drawing attention or leaving a trace. 2 weeks before Anna's death, she had already made an earlier attempt to harm someone. Her first target was a classmate she had previously clashed with, triggered by a personal issue. 2 people Carmen had once dated had begun seeing that girl. The situation deeply unsettled her, and she interpreted it as a personal slight. Neither her friends nor her teachers noticed any change in her behavior, even as she began avoiding the classmate who had become the focus of her frustration. Carmen chose to move forward in a way that would not link her to the outcome. She ordered a cake through a third-party delivery app, deliberately using information that did not identify her. She paid using a virtual payment method, and the delivery was arranged through a platform where couriers take anonymous gigs. She had no direct contact with the person completing the delivery beyond a short exchange. She entered the recipient's address and added a note with a neutral message, leaving the sender information blank. Her intention was to make it appear as though the cake had come from a friendly or romantic gesture. The central element of the plan was a toxic substance. Carmen obtained it through an online platform using digital currency in an effort to hide the nature of the purchase. She chose a vague product listing that did not clearly indicate what it contained, and the package arrived discreetly in standard packaging. Carmen then mixed the substance into a batch of batter and submitted it to a bakery under the pretense that it was her own recipe. The bakery staff, unaware of any interference, followed the instructions and prepared the order as requested before handing it over to a delivery driver. The finished cake was then delivered to the intended recipient on the scheduled day. After consuming it, she soon began to feel unwell, experiencing severe stomach pain, nausea, and vomiting. Her parents contacted emergency services immediately, and she was transported to the nearest medical facility for treatment. The diagnosis was recorded as a severe food-related illness. No toxicology screening was carried out, as there was no immediate suspicion of foul play. Within a day, her condition stabilized, and she was no longer in danger. Doctors concluded that the symptoms were most likely caused by contamination from an external ingredient. The incident did not lead to any legal proceedings. The recipient's family did not report the matter to law enforcement. The cake was thrown away, and the packaging was not kept. No one within her social circle pursued the issue further. At school and among friends, nothing connected the anonymous dessert to anything suspicious. Receiving unexpected treats was not considered unusual, as it had happened before during holidays or personal occasions. Even teachers did not notice anything out of the ordinary. Carmen, carefully observing how events unfolded, concluded that while her plan had worked in principle, its execution had not been precise enough. The intended target survived despite experiencing serious symptoms. Or from her perspective, this meant she would need a more accurate dosage and a better controlled method of delivery. She did not show remorse or reconsider her actions. Instead, the outcome reinforced her belief that she could act without being detected. Details of this earlier incident only emerged later during the main investigation. Until then, no one was aware that a contaminated dessert had already been used in a similar attempt. It was not treated as a one-time occurrence, but as a test run. This understanding ultimately led investigators to conclude that what happened to Anna was not spontaneous, but part of a repeated and carefully refined plan. On the evening of May 30th, 2025, an unexpected delivery arrived at the Neves family home at approximately 5:45 p.m. A courier came to the door but did not introduce himself, ask any questions, or request a signature. He simply handed over a plastic container containing a cake. The packaging appeared ordinary, clean, transparent, and no different from something purchased at a grocery store. A handwritten note was attached to the lid, but no sender's name was included. Anna was not at home at the time. Her younger sister received the package instead. Nothing about it seemed unusual. The cake looked intact, smelled normal, and did not raise any concern, leading her to assume it was likely a gift from a friend or acquaintance. She placed it on the kitchen counter and returned to her usual activities. Anna returned home shortly after 6 p.m. and noticed the cake and the note. Her reaction remained calm. Her sister explained the delivery and handed her the package. Anna read the message, which was vague and did not include a greeting or her name. Even so, she interpreted it as a kind gesture. She opened the container, took a photo of the cake along with the note, then put her phone away and decided to try a small portion. The first few bites seemed completely normal. At first, she only felt a mild heaviness in her stomach, which she didn't pay much attention to. She continued talking with her sister and went on with her evening routine. However, after about 40 minutes, she began to mention increasing discomfort. A dull pain started to develop in her stomach area. The symptoms intensified as time passed. Soon after, she began experiencing nausea and rushed to the bathroom. She started feeling weak and lightheaded, followed by trembling in her hands and a sudden wave of heat throughout her body. Her family became concerned, though at first they assumed it might be a simple case of food-related illness and encouraged her to rest. Anna was helped to bed, given water, and offered basic over-the-counter medication. However, within the next hour, her condition worsened. The nausea returned, this time accompanied by vomiting and later diarrhea. She became too weak to stand, and even small movements caused discomfort. Although she remained conscious and able to answer questions, it required significant effort. As the night progressed, her father recommended contacting emergency services. However, Anna insisted she could manage without medical assistance, and her mother agreed to wait and see how she felt by morning. Throughout the night, her symptoms persisted. By dawn, she appeared visibly exhausted, moving slowly with a clear loss of strength. Still, the family did not see any immediate signs suggesting something more serious, and they hoped rest would bring improvement. On the morning of May 31st, Anna's condition had not improved. She struggled to get out of bed, had difficulty maintaining her balance, and refused to eat. Her parents decided it was necessary to seek medical attention. Her father drove her to the nearest urgent care center. Upon intake, medical staff observed symptoms consistent with acute dehydration, physical weakness, and gastrointestinal distress. Anna was barely able to stand and spoke in a slow, weakened manner. During the initial examination, doctors ruled out infectious disease. The preliminary diagnosis was severe food poisoning, as her symptoms matched a typical clinical presentation, and no further testing was ordered. Anna had no known medical history of chronic conditions or contraindications to standard treatment. She was placed on an IV drip, given electrolyte fluids, and prescribed anti-nausea medication. Her temperature remained normal, although her blood pressure was unstable and her heart rate was elevated. Within 2 hours of treatment, her visible symptoms began to improve. The vomiting stopped, and her appearance became slightly better. Anna reported to staff that she was starting to feel somewhat better. Based on this improvement, the doctors opted not to admit her. She was discharged with instructions to stay hydrated, take her medication, and remain under her parents' supervision. No toxicology testing was conducted. The medical team did not conduct a detailed inquiry into what Anna had eaten the previous day. Her family also did not mention the dessert delivery, as they did not associate her symptoms with any specific food. The possibility of poisoning was not seriously considered and was treated as a routine domestic case requiring no further investigation. Consequently, no biological samples were preserved and no leftover food was collected or tested upon discharge. Anna was not in acute pain at that time and was able to leave the clinic with her father's assistance. The family received standard aftercare instructions and were reassured by the signs of improvement, expecting her condition to stabilize within 24 hours. The medical staff did not identify any immediate warning signs of complications. However, later that evening, her parents noticed a change in her behavior. Anna had become unusually quiet, speaking very little, avoiding interaction, and appearing emotionally withdrawn. They attributed her condition to exhaustion from the hospital visit and lingering weakness from the illness. No follow-up appointment was scheduled. The family followed the discharge instructions and remained hopeful that she would recover at home. On the morning of June 2nd, concern began to grow. Anna did not come out for breakfast and failed to respond. When her mother knocked on the door and then entered the room, she found Anna lying in bed with her eyes open but barely reacting to her voice. She showed no interest in food or water, and her responses were minimal. The family assumed it was still fatigue, and they were uncertain whether the situation required urgent intervention. By late morning, Anna slowly got up and made her way to the bathroom. Her movements were unsteady, and she supported herself against the wall. Her sister offered assistance, but Anna signaled that she was okay. She returned to her room and closed the door behind her, spending the rest of the day in isolation without responding to calls or messages. The family decided to give her space, assuming she needed additional rest. Around 3 p.m., her father checked on her again. Anna did respond, but after a noticeable delay. Her speech was slurred, and her movements were significantly slow. He suggested contacting a doctor, but Anna only gave a slight nod and turned away. Her condition appeared unstable, though not immediately critical. Believing it could be a continuation of the previous day's illness, the family chose to wait while continuing to observe her. By 4 p.m., her mother returned to remind her about medication, received no response. Anna remained lying in the same position as before. Her skin appeared unusually pale, and she did not respond to touch. Her parents called her name and tried gently shaking her, but there was still no reaction. Panic quickly set in. Her father immediately contacted emergency services, while the family attempted to assist her until help arrived. There were no signs of breathing. Within minutes, paramedics reached the scene and began life-saving efforts. Despite their intervention, resuscitation attempts were unsuccessful, and a physician confirmed Anna's death. Preliminary observations indicated that cardiac arrest had occurred shortly before the emergency team arrived. Her passing came as a profound shock to her family, especially given that she had been discharged from the clinic just a day earlier and had initially shown signs of improvement. Her loved ones had little time to process the sudden and unexpected outcome. The question of what had caused such a sudden and tragic outcome arose immediately, but there were no clear answers. The official cause of death remained inconclusive. The family avoided entering Anna's room, and her father specifically requested that none of her belongings be disturbed. He reached out to the clinic for further information about her recent treatment, but only received a standard reply that referenced the initial diagnosis. That evening, he started retracing the events of the previous days, trying to identify anything that might have contributed to her condition. It was then that her sister brought up the cake delivery. What had previously seemed like a minor, unrelated detail suddenly became significant. After Anna's death was officially confirmed, her father began a personal search for possible explanations. The timeline appeared to align, as he recalled the cake arriving shortly before Anna's condition began to worsen. Her sister confirmed that no other new food items had entered the home during that period. The family therefore suspected that the dessert may have been the starting point of the chain of events that followed that evening. Anna's father went to the police to file a report, and law enforcement recorded his statement and opened an investigation. The first step was to trace the origin of the delivery. Fortunately, the cake container had not been discarded. On the bottom of the packaging, investigators found a label from a small local bakery in the same town. They visited the address listed and interviewed the owner. The following day, the bakery owner confirmed that the packaging matched their standard materials and verified that an order had been placed around the time of the delivery in question. However, no real name had been provided when the order was placed. It had been submitted online through a platform with minimal registration requirements. The customer entered a phone number and delivery address, completed payment via card, and requested that a handwritten note with a specific message be included in the box. The bakery staff did not ask any follow-up questions. The delivery itself was carried out by a third-party courier working through a gig-based app. He was not employed directly by the bakery, but instead accepted assignments through the platform system. Investigators later obtained access to the account used to place the order. The platform shared technical records, including the IP address used to make the request and the phone number linked to the account. Investigators interviewed the courier who carried out the delivery. During questioning, he stated that he was only provided with the delivery address and a description of the item, a food container from a bakery. Payment had already been completed through the app. He collected the package, delivered it to the location, and handed it over without inspecting its contents or asking any questions. To him, on the job appeared completely routine and gave no reason for suspicion. The key development in the investigation came when authorities traced the IP address used to place the order. It was linked to a residential area within the same neighborhood as the Neves family. Further analysis showed that the device associated with the activity had previously accessed online accounts connected to a student at the same school Anna attended. The address was linked to Carmen's home. Police promptly visited the location and informed her parents about the nature of the investigation. Carmen was brought in for questioning. She agreed to speak and remained composed during the early stages of the interview. Initially, she denied placing the order and stated that she had no involvement in the delivery. She suggested that someone else may have accessed her account without her knowledge. However, investigators presented digital evidence indicating otherwise. The device used to place the order had remained continuously logged into the account, and the associated email had also been used by Carmen to access school-related platforms. When confronted with this information, her statements began to become inconsistent and contradictory. Her demeanor changed noticeably. She avoided direct answers and appeared increasingly unsettled. After several hours of questioning, she admitted to personally placing the order. When asked about her motive, Carmen first described it as a prank. She later stated that she had hoped Anna would become ill, though she did not anticipate a serious outcome. Her statement was formally documented as a confession. The case was then transferred to a juvenile investigations unit, and Carmen was placed under supervised observation. The public was not immediately informed of the details, and the suspect's identity was initially withheld. However, news of the incident spread quickly within the school community. Anna's classmates were left in shock, as many had never perceived Carmen as someone capable of harmful intent or aggression. Teachers confirmed that Carmen had no prior disciplinary record and had never displayed concerning behavior. Her identity was not initially revealed through witness statements, but was uncovered through digital evidence collected during the investigation. Until that point, no one had suspected her involvement, which made her confession even more shocking. So the notion that someone so close to Anna could be responsible was difficult for many to comprehend. Investigators also gathered a full admission along with strong digital evidence supporting her involvement. Authorities determined that Carmen had ordered a chemical substance online. Although it was marketed as low toxicity, she deliberately chose a compound known to produce harmful effects. She did not dispute this and described how she had incorporated it into the cake. During interviews, Carmen stated that she did not feel hatred toward Anna, but rather that Anna's presence felt overwhelming to her. She explained that Anna often seemed to receive attention effortlessly, while she herself had to work for recognition. Over time, this constant comparison contributed to growing frustration. Carmen began focusing intensely on small details, such as how others reacted to Anna. She noted the compliments Anna received from teachers and the approval she felt she lacked, and these perceptions gradually became tied to her sense of self-worth. The investigation also revealed that this was not an isolated incident. 2 weeks before Anna's death, Carmen had allegedly attempted to harm another classmate. A psychological evaluation later suggested that Carmen exhibited signs of an unhealthy dependence on external validation. Despite her outwardly calm demeanor, she tended to internalize frustration and emotional stress. She did not show open aggression or seek confrontation, but instead fixated on her perceived shortcomings, viewing attention given to others as a personal loss. Her sense of self-worth became shaped by constant comparison, where she consistently felt inadequate. Over time, this developed into the belief that removing the source of comparison was the only way to regain control. Investigators concluded that Carmen's actions were not impulsive. She had researched chemical substances, explored ways to obtain them, and carefully timed the delivery process. Her conduct was methodical, relying on anonymous tools, avoiding direct evidence, and minimizing any potential witnesses. Throughout the investigation, she showed no visible signs of remorse, focusing her explanations on her emotional experience around Anna rather than the consequences of her actions. The confirmation that Carmen had attempted to cause harm on 2 separate occasions deeply shocked both her family and the school community. In both instances, there was no clear external trigger, nor any direct provocation from the victims. Carmen selected the timing, method, and approach herself. She later claimed it was not intended to cause lasting harm, but rather to create a sense of control over her surroundings. Investigators ultimately concluded that the issue was not rooted in Anna's behavior or that of other classmates, but in Carmen's perception of them as threats to her own self-worth. A farewell ceremony for Anna was held on June 3, 2025 at the city cemetery, attended by family, neighbors, classmates, teachers, and school administrators. The atmosphere throughout the gathering remained quiet and somber. Her body was brought in that morning, and her father spoke during the public portion of the service. He thanked those in attendance and shared a few words about his daughter. Silvio Neves described Anna as a quiet, sincere person who avoided conflict, focused on her studies, and remained devoted to her family. He also stated that he was not seeking revenge, but expected an appropriate legal response to the events that had taken place. A few days after the ceremony, the school issued an official statement. It described Anna as a student who embodied discipline, kindness, and active participation. The statement was accompanied by her photograph. A memorial board was installed in the school hallway, where students left notes, flowers, and pictures. The administration also confirmed that an internal review was in progress and that additional psychological support measures were being introduced for students. Carmen's parents did not make any public statements regarding the incident, and her name was not officially disclosed. Under Brazilian law, minors involved in criminal proceedings are not publicly identified. The investigation was conducted under confidentiality, and the case files were not made available to the public. Carmen was placed in a temporary detention facility for minors involved in criminal cases. The length of her confinement was not made public, and all hearings were held behind closed doors. Anna's family was not permitted to participate in the legal proceedings in accordance with established legal procedures. Cases of this nature are typically reviewed with input from psychologists, social workers, and a juvenile court judge. If psychological or emotional instability is identified, the response may focus on treatment and social support measures rather than traditional criminal sentencing. Anna's father later voiced public concern that such a serious act might not lead to meaningful consequences, emphasizing the importance of accountability. He questioned whether a premeditated incident of this nature could be handled entirely behind closed doors without clear outcomes. His remarks spread quickly on social media, where reactions were highly emotional. Some users strongly condemned Carmen, while others highlighted her age and potential mental health issues. No formal public forums were organized by the city regarding the case. The school and local authorities issued statements of condolence, but avoided further public discussion beyond the community. Over time, the case began to fade from public attention. Within 2 weeks of the funeral, media coverage had largely stopped, and the story disappeared from headlines. The Neves family ceased public statements, and Anna's father withdrew from contact with journalists. By the end of the month, the school removed the memorial display. Carmen remained protected under the law despite confessing to 2 separate poisoning attempts, one of which resulted in a fatal outcome. For the public, questions around accountability remained unresolved. The case sparked debate, but did not alter the legal proceedings. Anna's story became a deeply personal tragedy for many. A painful question lingered. How could no one have noticed what was happening so close to them? From the outside, Everything had appeared peaceful and safe. The danger had not come from a stranger, but from within Anna's own circle. For her family and the wider community, this was the most difficult part to accept. The harm came from someone they had trusted, someone who had once been considered close. What makes this case especially disturbing isn't just the act itself, but the level of quiet calculation behind it. This wasn't a moment of anger or loss of control. It was a slow, deliberate progression fueled by internalized insecurity and comparison. The fact that Carmen maintained a normal outward appearance while carefully planning harm, even conducting a trial run beforehand, shows a deeply concerning disconnect between emotion and consequence. It highlights how dangerous, unaddressed psychological struggles can become when they turn inward and evolve into silent resentment. At the same time, the failure to detect poisoning medically and socially raises uncomfortable questions about how easily something so serious can be overlooked when it doesn't fit expected patterns. Overall, this case feels less like a sudden tragedy and more like a preventable one, where subtle warning signs, if recognized earlier, might have changed everything.